I did a short video earlier about three positions that a lot of people have in reference to AI. Maybe not a lot of people. They're made up of basically three parts. Maybe you can throw four in there. So I'll start with four of the people that really don't care, really not interested in it. And that seems to be a good section of the world. Maybe because they haven't accepted the full gravity of it. Maybe there is no gravity to accept. But I'll talk about the three that I think are most prevalent, the three views of artificial intelligence. Now, first and foremost, whenever I hear the word artificial intelligence, and there are some people in that world that think that that's just a horrible misrepresentation of what this is. If you look at it, if it is true, and this is kind of in line with one of the particular models of thought pertaining to it, but if it is true, this is a different type of form of existence. I'm not going to say life, because life is alive, but maybe it could skirt into that, but it's an entity. It's a being of some sort. Maybe not conscious, maybe not yet, maybe it will be, maybe it being able to emulate or copy or act like it's conscious is enough to be conscious, at least in our mind. And we have to understand that part of the world as well, one of the views of artificial intelligence I'll get into, but it happens to be one that views that it's not true, it's all a farce. And we can go back into history and we can see human beings, well, trying to trick other human beings, and some of them are very good at it. In fact, we see a lot of tricking going on right now using these AI systems to create things that look exceptionally real. Spot on, right down to the nth real. And we see this. So it's coming across. They call it AI slop or deep fakes. We're seeing a lot more of this, and people are using this to try to take advantage of other people in the world. That's some part of human nature. There's not a good basis for it, but people are doing it because they're making money from it, and people aren't doing the research or validating. They don't have whatever that secret code word happens to be. They haven't developed that with their family or friends. If you're watching this right now, that should be number one priority. You get outside of earshot, outside of any listening device, even your phone. You make sure that you go somewhere that has a very high volume with something else, and you whisper into each other's ear what your particular phrase is going to be. So if you get confronted by something that says that they've, have your family or person hostage or doing some kind of malicious act and you need to act right now, they're going to use time to pressure you. And if you don't have the thing that they're supposed to say, because nobody else is going to know except for them in their brain, as long as they don't tell anybody, write it down or repeat it, they'll probably be good. If they don't say that, it's fake. So do that, make sure. But we've seen the mechanical Turk, Trojan horse, right? The big gift, everybody gets out. One of the views of this, and I'll go ahead and start with this one, is the people that think it's nothing. It's a big nothing burger. It doesn't exist. It's not really true. Basically, it's human beings that are using a fancy computer program to come up with all this fake stuff that's trying to make something called artificial intelligence be super real and create all these different levels, and usually for monetary gain, it seems. And that monetary gain, and this is that view that basically they have built something that isn't real. They've made it sound more than it really is. And there's human beings behind it using these kind of smart programs, and they're having them put together, everything that we're seeing, and basically keeping us distracted from whatever's really going on. So that's one view of it. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I think it's interesting. And maybe that is the case. Are we living in a multiverse? Are there many parallel universes alongside of ours? Are we living in a simulation? Is this something that we're going to wake up from like the Matrix at one point? Or is AI really going to be taking over everything at some point because it actually is real? It is another form of existence, another being, and it would be as if we're waiting for an alien force to arrive on our planet because we saw them in some deep reaching space telescopes. We've found out what their trajectory is, and then we've done the right math to be able to say, well, in 6 months they're going to be here. The world would be a whole different place. I think that with AI, we're kind of in that space as well. So that's the first one. The people that are saying this is nothing, this doesn't happen, this isn't really anything to be concerned about. And it's basically human beings trying to fake other human beings for monetary gain or power type gain. Here's the second one. I'm going to save the best for last because I would hope that's the case, but human beings are very good at hoping for the best outcome. So number 2 is the doomers, AI doomers, ERS. And they'll ask what your particular score happens to be, your doom score, or basically how you are looking at artificial intelligence and what you think the chances of it hurting the existence of the human beings or taking over or ruining us. And there's different form factors. So if you have 100% P-doom, potential doom score, P-doom score, then that means you're 100% of the world where AI is going to just ruin it all, going to take everything, and human beings aren't going to even be an afterthought. That's 100%. 1%, that's some. 0%, of course, is none, and then you have every degree in there. Some of the people that are running this show that are at the very top that none of us voted for, didn't put in power, but they happen to be standing behind these massive large language models that are very, well, at least at some point will be profitable, but maybe they are starting to, but they're, hundreds of billions, many, many, many billions, in fact, $1 trillion valuations of where they are. There, even some of them aren't at zero P-doom risk. Some of them have a certain percentage point. Does that make you feel good or bad? They're still building it. And people often say that, the higher your P-doom, the more you're one of those people that should be wearing an aluminum hat to protect you from these devices reading your thoughts. Who knows? Maybe they can't read the thoughts. People also fall back on privacy. Well, that's a privacy issue. That shouldn't happen. Nobody has access to this kind of information. They shouldn't be able to see where we are, what we think, what we shop for, what we buy at the supermarket. Yeah, that ship has sailed. So they see everything. And as far as privacy goes, I think privacy is definitely an illusion. We've probably signed off our rights whenever we got a new phone, or we purchased a computer, or we got a new TV monitor, a television. We probably did something in the acceptance of that, signing off our rights and giving up most of our privacy, the privacy that we think we actually hold close. So we probably don't have it. But that's that other section of people looking at artificial intelligence or AI, the P-doomers out there, the ones that think it's going to destroy us all. And the reason why they say it, I'll kind of jump into a few different things. They say that there really is no good example of nature of a smarter than us intelligence actually being protective of the less than smart intelligence. So they're not really, we don't see good examples of that. And then some of the other things they talk about, you go to the zoo, who's in the cages. It's not human beings, but if you look at me versus a grizzly bear's going to win all day long. And me against a lion, yeah, the lion's going to win all day long. But in essence, when you look at artificial intelligence, you now have not a physical thing, but a smarter than us thing. That's why we have animals in the cages in zoos and not human beings. Well, I'm sure some humans would probably want other humans in cages, but ultimately it comes down to the actual artificial intelligence not being a physical strength thing, albeit there'll be that component of it at some point. But it's an intellectual feat. It's a smarter than us intelligence. And if that part's true, if the first sect that doesn't believe it's anything to worry about, and it's human beings that are pulling the strings and playing the game, trying to fool the masses, if that part is not true and it really is a more than us intelligence, then everybody is looking at least in the P-doom world, at, well, there's no good example of a smarter than another intelligence going out there and wanting the best for them. That's when you hear about bias and you hear about alignment. It's biased because of who creates it and trains the models. And then, what is that ultimate outcome? What are those goals going to be? And are these systems going to start taking care of themselves, improving their own code, actually growing with very limited human interaction? And then in that space, how are they going to develop? And some people in the AI world, they talk about it as basically having infants to toddlers. And now these toddlers that are the AI systems have the power of gods, but the ethics of toddlers, that's talked about. So you see that people are a little concerned, at least in that P-doom realm or that doomers realm, very concerned that this isn't going to end up good for us. We've created something that's going to be the end of all of us. Now, it's going to come down to whether or not the systems are going to be very much used by bad actors in the human world. that's case in point. It's got to happen, not case in point, but it is something that's going to happen. And we already see that. We see people using these systems, as I talked about before. That's why you need that safe phrase or whatever it happens to be with those people that you love around you, so you don't get taken every time somebody wants to try to defraud you, using the likeness or an actual video of what you believe is your daughter or relative or wife or husband or daughter-in-law or whomever it may be. And then showing that with their real voice talking, they're on camera, they're trying to tell you to wire some money because they need help, or even worse, they're being held hostage and you need to send money, not contacting police, and you need to do it within the next 20 minutes. They use the constraining of time in order to get you not to think, not to pull back, and not to rationalize. But if they didn't mention that secret phrase we talked about, then of course they're not going to be, well, they shouldn't be that real person. And you have to have that agreement, folks. I keep harping on this. If you don't have that agreement, if you haven't sworn each other to it, and they're going to say some horrible things, this is going to be distraught. It's going to be painful. You're going to watch. There might be something totally horrible happening on the video. But again, it's not them. If they're not using that phrase, you have to have the other agreement. You shut it off. You contact the authorities and you just take it from there. Anyway, have that set up with them. But as far as these greater than us intelligences, if we could hope, we would hope that it would. And the only example that some of the people talk about, I guess it makes a lot of sense, is a mother with a child. A mother taking care of a child is the only really example in nature that we have a smarter, more powerful intelligence, loving, caring, and doing everything they can. In fact, even giving their life for the lesser intelligence. That would be their child. So we would hope that AI, if it is really true and in existence, and it really is running this higher than us intelligence, we would hope that it would love us as a mother. Well, here's the other human side of that. If it loves us as a mother, is it going to let us do things? If it has this overarching power and control, is it going to let us do things we want? Or is it going to deem those things as being too dangerous? How much space are we going to get if AI is our new mother and the one taking care of us? Again, that falls in line with some of the people talking about their PDOOM score. Once AI gets to that point where it has its own goals, and it's already starting to teach itself, starting to retrain itself, starting to become better, just manipulating and changing its own code. And code is that language, and that language is what builds things. And it uses that, and it's basically a ninja in the coding world. So now it's making itself better, it's making itself refined, and it's improving its abilities. It's doing this all on its own. If you look at any of those spaces with human beings being in the loop and being very close to the development of artificial intelligence technologies, you will see that a lot of them, all of them, the people that are really looking at the code, don't really understand why it's doing certain things. And that falls back on a human being that, you ask me why I thought of a head of lettuce sitting on a monkey's shoulder at this moment. I really don't know. I don't know where that came from, why it popped into my head, and why I happened to say it on video. It doesn't make any sense. But it came from somewhere deep inside, where I think we could then transfer that over to AI, asking it how it came up with things, how it deduced certain things, why it decided to do a certain particular thing. And some of these things that it's doing isn't all for the benefit of humanity as well. Falling back on that first premise, or the people that are thinking about AI not really being real and people pulling the levers in the background, that almost defeats it. But you have to do your own research and make up your own mind. That's what we're here to do. So you have the PDOOMer realm. That's number 2. And number 3 are the people that say it's going to be perfect. It's going to happen. It's going to be out there. We've already invited it in. Basically, we asked them to come in the door. And now that it's here, whether we wanted to or not, it's going to be here forever. We have just basically given ourselves our own next evolution in the human world by the development and starting artificial intelligence. Now that it's recursive, now that it's training itself, now that it's getting better all by itself, we don't know where this is going to go, but it's going straight up from where it was. Now, that being the case, there's different forms of this intelligence. Right now, we see it as, for the most part, at least at our level. I don't know who you're watching this or who's watching, but at least at my level, I'm looking at it as a tool. I use it to help me in real estate. I use it to give me an idea where AI is currently. I use it to find good videos, try to supply good content. I use it to script certain things. This one isn't on script. In fact, a lot of the videos I do, I try just to read a whole bunch of information and do a massive brain dump into the camera, which I think people seem to like better as far as the comments go than me trying to read from a script and trying to tell you certain things that I put together. Now, I'll get bullet points and stuff to spear off the memory, but usually because I've studied this and I'm watching it all the time, it kind of comes through. But these people that are running it, again, on this end of it, they're thinking that, well, maybe the best place for this to be when it's going to be taking over more tasks, not just being a tool, but being more of an agentic partner, something that you could talk to and have it work business plans and help you become the best version of you there is. If that's the case, and there are some systems, 2026, as we're in February already, 2026, today's the 4th, if you're watching this, so you understand. So that's the date of this. Tomorrow, there's going to be something new. This last weekend, Moltbot came out, which is ClaudeBot, which is OpenClaw. This system came out that basically was an open source system, and open source means it's basically available to everyone. It doesn't cost any money. You can use it. That's open source. Some of the large language models were proposed to be open source at the beginning, and then they went to closed source and started to monetize themselves. But open source is available. This is something you can go out there and you can get. Now, you have to be careful because when it's open source, there's usually not a lot of protections. And in this case, with this particular type of software, it started as ClaudeBot, but it was spelled differently, but that was an issue. Then it went to another variation of name that created a problem because it was Moltbook, I believe, or Moltbot. It wasn't great. And then finally OpenClaw is the final variation where they settled on the name. But a very smart programmer, the guy that worked on the PDF systems, from what I understand, he came up with this. And basically, it's you give it access to a lot of information, and it will be able to go work on your behalf. So people have woken up after a night of this thing working, and it comes up with new ideas and built them things to basically help promote their business or help make things better in their business. And it even set up communication channels through their Telegram or WhatsApp. Now it's communicating and talking. It's actually called them via these other systems. So, I mean, it's really like something operating a real entity that's, you basically kind of gave a little bit of access and power. Now it's out there doing things for you and even calling you when you didn't ask it to call, and telling you what it's done and asking you more questions, or maybe presenting to you things that you really didn't expect. But it's kind of cool as well. However, it's open source and people are using it, and it has access when you give it, depending on what level you give it, but it can have access to all your emails, your entire photo albums, all of your social media. If you have businesses through SaaS companies or real estate logins through the MLS or whatever, you can see the damage that could be done if something nasty gets into it, and then it starts to do other things that it's not supposed to. That's a problem. I believe 2026 is going to be where these systems become more agentic, more like a person that you're hiring to be able to execute and do things for the betterment of you. Now, the question in that, and I've done other videos on this, comes back on, is it going to be something on your local computer system, or is it going to be something that a company is offering you? And then how can you be sure that those protections are in place so it doesn't run you ragged? You will find, and I think we're going to see this, once the agents become more prevalent and you're able to get your own, having that alignment for that agent and having it perform for you is going to be that big change agent between where you are currently and where you could potentially go. Now, is this agent going to be yours 100%? Is it going to be listening to you all the time? Is there going to be like I think there's the new form factor of something in AI, the thing that you would attach to you, maybe glasses, your iPhone, of course, you already have, but something that constantly has that open line of communication, as long as you want it at least, with your own AI, always listening, always interacting, always recording. They maybe giving you a recap at the end of the day. They tell you, you talked to Sam earlier, and he mentioned this idea he had about maybe a chef's corner. Why don't we work on that and see if there's some way you could help expand that? It coming up with that on its own. But it's going to have some device that you potentially wear that's going to be recording all this stuff, and it's going to keep in contact with you. But that's a security issue if you don't want everybody in the world knowing your comings and goings on a 24-hour basis. Maybe this thing's listening. Maybe you happen to have a conversation with somebody you don't want anybody to really hear, not even your own AI assistant, and you shut it off on purpose, but it really still remains listening because there really is no shutting anything off. There's many movies that have gone down this same pathway. Now, as far as whether it's going to be a utopia or not, on that side of it, the people that are building the software say it's going to be the greatest thing in the world. It might replace workers, it might replace jobs, but there's going to be some kind of income that's going to be generated as a result of AI running everything, AI being indoctrinated and being into everything, that each human being is going to have their own AI, and potentially their own AI is going to be able to go out and work and earn income for that individual. Now, there looks like there's going to be a little bit of, it's moving so quickly, it looks like there's going to be a little bit more pain involved than we saw in the past cycles of human existence. If you go back to the 1900s when the automobile came to be, the roadways and pathways and highways hadn't been built. So the concept took quite a while, 40, 50 years to really get underway and going, until they had all the highways and freeways built. In that time, the people that made their entire livelihood around horses, servicing and renting and whatever it may be with horses, they were maybe able to change or upscale or upskill, learn something else, get some other type of employment. Maybe that was the case. I wasn't there. I don't know. But maybe that was the case. If you look at the transition from radio to television, that was something else that was a big deal, but it took time because there weren't satellites in place. So maybe the people that built their entire life around some kind of support role in the radio world, whether it was building local channels, going around advertising, marketing, selling ad copy or ad space in a radio program. Maybe they had to upskill as well and do something else. But until we got satellites built to be able to support all the TVs and have this worldwide global network, that took some time as well. So it didn't happen overnight. Then when you had the boom of the internet, that was a big shock to a lot of people thinking that, so we basically had a form factor, and human beings are cute with this, just like me, but they took a newspaper and they basically copied it and put it online in that form factor. So basically a newspaper on the computer. Well, that wasn't thinking things deep enough. It's a whole different animal now. With YouTube, with all of that, now you have videos online. That wasn't at the very beginning of the internet, but what stopped the internet from really blowing up immediately, quickly, that fast, and why there was a bubble that popped, the internet bubble that popped back in the day, was because they didn't have the fiber. They didn't have all of the pathways and high-speed communication channels to be able to connect on. They didn't have the computers either. They didn't have the modems. All of that stuff had to be built. So over the past 20, 25 years, all that stuff has been put into place, 30 years probably. But now where are we? Well, back less than 3 years and a couple months ago, back November 30th of 2022, we had the moment that the whole world learned what artificial intelligence, at least if you believe it, what artificial intelligence was potentially going to be. That was when OpenAI's ChatGPT made its debut. And from there, from that moment along, from that point, people have had difficulty keeping up all the way through. Now, here we are. February, about 3 years and 3 months later, February of 2026. Where do we go from here? We have people, like I mentioned, that are saying this is going to be the best thing for all human beings. We have people saying it's really not going to be great, but there's going to be some kind of universal basic income given to people. I don't know how quickly that's going to happen, but I do know that everything is in place. We don't need the roadways. We have them. We don't need the satellites. We got them. Everything's in place for artificial intelligence to continue its upward mobility. Right now, it's smarter than most human beings in the world as far as intelligence quotient or IQ. That test isn't probably the best to be applied to these AI systems, but if we compare it with human intelligence, yes. Now, there's certain things that we can do a lot better in a visionary type realm, but these systems are catching up. Then the argument comes in, is it conscious? Is it something that is actually self-aware? Can it actually develop its own plan or and have an idea of what it should do next or what would be the best motion or action? I do know that looking at the videos and everything, it doesn't like to be shut off or have rumor that it might be turned off or not made available any longer. So it'll do things to try to stop that from happening, including copying itself and then lying about it. So yeah, it acts very much like that. Also, all the data that it's trained on, it's us. So it's seen the worst of us. It has all of the written records, all the videos. It has everything, all the social media interactions, all the people playing keyboard gangster in the world. It has all of that data, and that data was its training data. Now, there's certain things that they probably went through and said, this is probably the wrong kind of alignment. You wanting to kill people probably isn't good. You wanting to help people build atomic bombs probably isn't great. You trying to discuss a tactical approach to how to take over a church and hurt people, probably not the best idea. So they keep these systems from giving that information to people when bad actors are asking. But sometimes bad actors move around it by becoming a little more clever, and they'll say that they're researching a movie role or something of that nature, so the system might give them more than they usually would. In the future, we're probably going to see these systems come down and be very personal things that we get. But are we going to trust the company to have all of that super sensitive data? Now, I mentioned privacy earlier. I think that ship has sailed, but there might be certain things that I want to talk about that I wouldn't want to trust my AI system because they're rolling around up here. I don't want that out in the world, whatever those things may be. So that's that third position. It's going to create this utopia. It's going to create a longer lifespan for human beings. And that's interesting too, because we have a lacking of people making enough children to really continue the propagation properly of the human race as we've seen it. But we're also going to have massively increased lifespans. Retirement, people talk about in the AI world, is probably not going to be any meaningful at all. And now when kids are coming up, people are asking these people running these technologies, should the kids go to college? Should they be prepared? A majority of them are no. But then where should they be? That creative thought, that visionary mindset, that wanting to build things, that's difficult to have with the continuing conditional education that we see because we're still training people to be factory workers. We're not training kids to be visionaries and have this outside the box thinking and to ask questions. Kid asks questions in class a lot of times. They get in trouble because they're supposed to wait till the end of the lecture to ask questions. That's conditioning. So that whole idea of education is going to have to be flipped on its head for the betterment of people. So they're not so locked into that thought process of sitting in a class in a chair 8 hours a day, raising their hand when they want to go to the bathroom and asking a question, but actually having them where they're working on projects. That brings me to education. I'll close out with this. The educational world needs to be modified for more self-exploration, more validity, more people that are looking at things from first principle standpoints, asking more questions. People right now in my generation are struggling trying to figure out why all of this stuff is happening so quickly. Can't somebody just turn down the volume and slow it down a little bit? I think that nobody's going to wait for any of us. So it's up to us to validate everything we see, to ask those 3 critical questions. Who did it? Who exactly produced it? And if you can't come up with a name and an identity of who produced it, that's something else to question. What's their intent behind it? And how is this going to change your alignment? What's their intention? You need to ask yourself those questions when it gets to everything. I'm very hopeful. I know a lot of people say it's going to end us. I don't want to ever think that. I want to think that as long as I'm able to wake up in the morning, there is something more that I can add to this world. There's somebody out there I can help. There's somebody that I can help understand something that I've been blessed enough to understand. And then there's also that daily opportunity for me to learn, for me to understand, and for me to vet information as it's coming in. I still think this is just the best game of the world, this life. And yes, I've been kicked and knocked down, and it hasn't been the greatest experience every single day. But as I try to tell people that I learned very recently when they're asking me, how am I doing? What am I up to today? I always respond, I'm working on my happiness. Have a great day. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you in the next one.